Valithorn had seen many species prepare for war. In her 40 cycles as a diplomatic observer for the Solari Council, she had watched the proud Thalaxians polish their golden armor. She had seen the cold Norvik calculate their odds with perfect mathematics. She had witnessed the insectoid craft swarm with mindless hunger. But she had never seen anything quite like the humans. The observation deck of Station Valora gave her a perfect view of the gathering fleets. Below her, the blue and green planet of Valora Prime turned slowly in the void. Above her, the stars were filled with warships. 300 HFY vessels hung in the darkness like a swarm of metal predators. Their black hulls absorbed the starlight, and their weapon arrays glowed with the promise of destruction. Against them stood the Allied Defense Force, 60 ships from 12 different species. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough. Valith pressed her forefingered hand against the cold glass and watched the numbers on her data tablet change. The HFY were still arriving. 312 now. 315. The Allied commanders were already talking about retreat. She could hear their voices through her communication device, arguing in a dozen different languages. "We cannot hold this position," said Admiral Vorax of the Thalaxian fleet. His voice was heavy with defeat. "The mathematics are clear. We must withdraw and protect the inner systems." "And abandon Valora Prime?" asked Commander Drell of the Norvik Collective. 14 million civilians live on that planet. 14 million dead civilians will not help us win this war, Vorax replied. Valith turned away from the window. This was how it always happened. The strong took what they wanted, and the weak made excuses for why they could not stop them. The HFY Dominion had been conquering worlds for 300 years. They had never been defeated in open battle. Why would today be any different? Then the hyperspace gate flashed with brilliant white light. Valith looked up as new ships emerged from the swirling portal. They were different from the others. Their hulls were gray and angular, built for function rather than beauty. They moved in tight formation, 12 vessels cutting through space with aggressive confidence. "Human fleet arriving," announced the station's computer. 12 vessels. Destroyer class and below. 12 ships. Valith almost laughed. The humans had sent 12 ships against 300. It was either the bravest thing she had ever seen or the most foolish. The Allied commanders fell silent. Even Admiral Vorax had nothing to say. The humans were new to the galactic community. They had only made contact with other species 20 years ago. Most of what Valith knew about them came from rumors and second-hand reports. They were supposed to be primitive, aggressive, dangerous, but surely they were not. Stupid. Her communication device crackled with a new voice. It was calm and steady, speaking the common galactic language with a strange accent. "This is Commander Daniel Carter of the USS Resolute. We are here to assist in the defense of Valora Prime, requesting tactical briefing and fleet coordination protocols." "Commander Carter," Admiral Vorax replied slowly, "we appreciate your willingness to help, but perhaps you do not understand the situation. The enemy outnumbers us 5-1. We are discussing withdrawal options." There was a pause. Then Carter spoke again. "With respect, Admiral, my people did not travel 400 light years to withdraw. We came to fight." Valith felt something cold move through her body. It was not fear exactly. It was something else. Something she could not name. She pulled up the human fleet on her tactical display and studied their ships more closely. The vessels were smaller than most of the Allied craft, but their power readings were unusually high. They bristled with weapons, far more than ships of their size should carry. "Commander Carter," said Drell of the Norvik, "our calculations show a 94% probability of total defeat. Your 12 ships will not change this outcome." "I have never been very good at math," Carter replied. Valeth could hear something strange in his voice. It took her a moment to realize he was amused. My tactical officer tells me we have a fighting chance. That is good enough for me. The HFY chose that moment to send their message. The main view screen flickered, and the face of High Commander Zithrix appeared. He was tall and skeletal, with gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. His eyes were black pools that reflected no light. "Allied forces," Zithrix said, his voice like grinding metal. "You are outnumbered and outmatched. Surrender your fleets and your planet, and we will grant you quick deaths. Resist, and we will make your suffering last for generations. You have 1 hour to decide." The screen went dark. Valeth watched the Allied commanders argue among themselves. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to run. A few suggested surrender. But through it all, the human channel remained silent. She switched her communication device to the human frequency and listened. She heard them talking to each other. Their voices were calm. Some were even laughing. She heard someone playing music in the background, a strange rhythmic sound she did not recognize. They did not sound like people preparing to die. They sounded like people preparing for work. "All stations report ready," said a female voice. "Lieutenant Lisa Morgan, according to the fleet registry." "Ground forces locked and loaded," said another voice. "Sergeant Marcus Cole." "Just point us at the bad guys, Commander." "Patience, Marcus," Carter replied. "We will have plenty of bad guys soon enough." Valeth stared at her display, trying to understand. These humans knew they were going to die. The numbers made it certain. Yet they showed no fear, no hesitation, no despair. They were checking their weapons, running their systems, preparing for battle as if victory was already assured. She had to know more. She had to understand. Valeth opened a channel to the human flagship. "Commander Carter, this is Diplomatic Observer Valeth Orath Ileth, a Solari Council. I request permission to come aboard your vessel. I wish to observe your preparations." There was a moment of silence. Then Carter's voice came through, warm and welcoming. "Observer Valeth, you are welcome aboard the Resolute. I should warn you, though, things are about to get very interesting." Valeth gathered her recording equipment and headed for the shuttle bay. Behind her, the HFY fleet began to move into attack formation. The hour was counting down, and somewhere in the void, 12 human ships waited in silence. She did not know it yet, but she was about to learn why the cosmos dreaded humanity. She was about to watch them charge into battle, and nothing would ever be the same again. The shuttle docked with the USS Resolute, and Valeth stepped into a world she did not understand. The corridor was narrow and gray, filled with the smell of metal and something else. Something organic and warm. Humans moved past her in both directions, their soft bodies wrapped in dark uniforms. They nodded at her politely, but did not stop. Everyone was busy. Everyone had somewhere to be. A young human female met her at the airlock. She had brown hair pulled back from her face and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Observer, Valeth? I am Lieutenant Lisa Morgan, Tactical Officer. Commander Carter asked me to show you around." Valeth followed the lieutenant through the winding passages of the ship. She had been on many vessels before, but the Resolute felt different. The walls were covered with strange images. Photographs of green landscapes and blue oceans. Pictures of small humans that Valeth realized must be children. Pieces of colored paper with words written on them. "What are these?" Valeth asked, pointing to a wall covered with photographs. "Reminders," Lisa said. "Pictures from home, family, friends, the things we are fighting for. You display images of your offspring on a warship?" Lisa smiled, and there was something sad in the expression. "We display them because this is a warship. When things get hard, we need to remember why we keep going." They entered a large room filled with human soldiers. These were not the officers Valith had heard on the communication channels. These were the ground forces. The ones who would fight on the surface of Valora Prime. They were doing something strange. Some of them sat in small groups, talking quietly. Others were writing on pieces of paper. A few were looking at small devices that displayed images of other humans. One soldier was sitting alone, eyes closed, lips moving in silent words. "What are they doing?" Valith asked. "Preparing," said a deep voice behind her. Valith turned to find a large human male standing there. His dark skin was marked with old scars, and his eyes held the weight of many battles. According to her data tablet, this was Sergeant Marcus Cole. "I do not understand," Valith admitted. "Should they not be checking their weapons? Running combat simulations?" "They already did that," Marcus said. He sat down on a metal crate and looked at his soldiers with something like affection. "Now they are doing the important stuff. Writing letters to their families. Making peace with whatever gods they believe in. Saying the things they might not get another chance to say. This helps them fight better?" Marcus nodded slowly. "A soldier with nothing to lose is dangerous, but a soldier with everything to lose is unstoppable. These men and women have families waiting for them back home. Children who need their parents to come back. They are not fighting for glory or conquest. They are fighting for love. And love makes humans do impossible things." Valith recorded his words carefully. She did not fully understand them, but she sensed they were important. Lisa led her to the command bridge, where Commander Daniel Carter stood at the center of control chaos. He was not a large man, but he filled the space around him with quiet authority. His gray eyes moved across the tactical displays, taking in information faster than Valith could follow. "Observer Valith," he said without turning around. "Welcome to the Resolute. I hope Lisa has been treating you well." "She has been most helpful," Valith said. "Commander, I must ask you something. Your fleet is outnumbered 25 to 1. Our combined forces face almost certain defeat. Why are you here?" Carter finally turned to look at her. His face was calm, almost peaceful. "Because someone has to be," he said. 14 million people live on that planet below us. They are not human. Most of them have never even seen a human. But they are people. They have families and dreams and fears, just like us. And the HFY will kill them all if we do not stop them. "But you cannot stop them," Valith said. "The mathematics are clear." Carter smiled, and it transformed his face into something warm and almost kind. "Observer, let me tell you something about humanity. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the smartest or the fastest or the most advanced. But we have one advantage that no one else seems to have. What is that? We do not know when to quit." He turned back to his displays. "Our history is filled with battles we should have lost. Wars we should have surrendered. Challenges we should have failed. But we did not. Because humans do not calculate our odds of survival. We calculate our reasons to fight. And when those reasons are strong enough, we become something that even the HFY cannot predict." The ship shuddered. Alarm lights began to flash. "Commander," Lisa called out from her station. "The HFY are moving. They are attacking ahead of schedule. Time until engagement? 12 minutes. Carter did not hesitate. "All hands to battle stations. Signal the fleet. We are moving to attack formation." "Attack formation?" Valith could not believe what she was hearing. "You are going to attack them?" "Of course," Carter said. "They expect us to defend. They expect us to cower. They expect us to die slowly and quietly. We are going to do none of those things." The bridge erupted into activity. Humans ran to their stations, their fingers flying across controls. Valith heard Marcus Cole's voice over the communication system, calling his soldiers to the dropships. She heard the engines roar to life, felt the deck vibrate beneath her feet, and she heard something else. Something that made no sense at all. The humans were singing. It started with one voice, then another, then a dozen more. A strange rhythmic song that pounded through the ship like a heartbeat. The words were in a human language she did not know, but the meaning was clear. It was a song of defiance, a song of war, a song that said, "We are coming, and you should be afraid." A young soldier rushed past her toward the drop bay. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking. Private Nathan Brooks, barely old enough to fight. Corporal Amy Walsh caught his arm as he passed. "You scared, Nathan?" she asked. "Yes," he admitted. Amy smiled and pressed something into his hand. A small photograph of a human family. "Good," she said. "Fear keeps you sharp. Now use it. Fight for the ones who cannot fight for themselves. And when it gets bad, remember that we are all scared. We just do not let it stop us." Nathan nodded, took a deep breath, and ran to join his squad. Valith watched him go, her mind struggling to process everything she had seen. These humans were afraid. They knew they might die. Yet they were charging forward anyway, singing their strange songs, carrying their photographs of loved ones, ready to fight against impossible odds. She did not understand them. Not yet, but she was beginning to see why the galaxy might fear them. "Observer," Carter said, his hand resting on the ship's wheel. "I suggest you find a secure position. Things are about to get rough." Outside the viewports, the stars began to move as the human fleet accelerated toward the enemy. 12 ships against 300. And not one of them was running away. The first human ship exploded 7 minutes into the battle, and Valith thought it was over. She watched from the observation deck of the Resolute as the destroyer, Valiant, broke apart in a cloud of fire and metal. 300 human souls, gone in an instant. The Kethvari fleet had surrounded it, pouring weapons fire into its hull until nothing remained but floating debris. But the humans did not stop. The remaining 11 ships pushed forward, their weapons blazing, cutting through the enemy formation like knives through water. They moved in ways that should have been impossible. Their ships twisted and rolled, accelerating and decelerating with brutal precision. Valith had never seen anything like it. "How are they doing that?" she asked the officer beside her. "Doing what?" "Moving like that. Those maneuvers would kill any other crew. The gravitational forces alone should crush them." The officer, a young man with blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead, smiled grimly. "Humans are tough," he said. "We come from a heavy gravity world. Our bodies can take punishment that would destroy most species. And our pilots train for this. They push themselves to the edge of death every day, just so they can fly like demons when it matters." Another Kethvari ship exploded, torn apart by concentrated fire from 3 human destroyers. Then another. The enemy had expected easy prey. They were learning their mistake. Commander Carter's voice came over the ship's communication system, calm and steady despite the chaos. "All ships maintain formation. Focus fire on their command vessels. We need to create a gap for the ground assault. Ground forces, prepare for drop in 3 minutes." Valith felt the ship shudder as another enemy blast struck the hull. Damage alarms wailed. Crew members rushed past her, carrying equipment, putting out fires, tending to the wounded. Nobody stopped. Nobody gave up. She made her way to the drop bay, where Sergeant Marcus Cole was addressing his soldiers. They stood in rows before him, weapons ready, faces hard. Behind them, the drop ships waited with their doors open like hungry mouths. "Listen up," Marcus said. "Our mission is simple. Get to the surface. Protect the civilian evacuation zones. Hold the line until everyone is safe. The HFY think they can take this planet. They think we are weak. They think we will break. He paused, his eyes moving across the faces of his soldiers. Show them how wrong they are. The soldiers responded with a single word, shouted in unison. Ura! Valith did not know what it meant, but the sound of it made something stir in her chest. The dropships launched. Valith watched them fall toward the planet below. Small metal boxes carrying hundreds of human soldiers into the heart of enemy territory. Anti-aircraft fire lit up the sky around them. 2 ships exploded before they reached the atmosphere. The others kept going. She followed the battle through the tactical displays, her heart pounding in her chest. She did not know why she cared so much. She was supposed to be an observer, neutral and distant. But something about these humans had gotten under her skin. On the surface, Marcus Cole led his soldiers into the burning streets of Valora Prime's capital city. The HFY had already landed their own forces, and the fighting was brutal. Valith listened to the communications, her translator struggling to keep up with the chaos. Contact left. 3 hostiles behind the vehicle. Covering fire. Move, move, move. Medic. We need a medic over here. That last voice belonged to someone calling for Corporal Amy Walsh. Valith watched her icon on the tactical display, a small blue dot moving through the red sea of enemy forces. Amy was everywhere at once, dragging wounded soldiers to safety, patching their injuries with quick hands, then picking up her weapon and returning fire. A HFY soldier appeared behind her. Valith shouted a warning that no one could hear. But Amy was already moving, spinning around, firing her weapon point blank into the enemy's chest. The HFY fell. Amy did not even pause. She grabbed the wounded soldier she had been treating and pulled him toward cover. How is she still alive? Valith whispered. Because she refuses to die, said a voice beside her. Valith turned to find Lieutenant Lisa Morgan standing there. Her arm was wrapped in bloody bandages, but her eyes were sharp and focused. You are injured, Valith said. I am fine. Lisa moved to her tactical station and began coordinating the battle. Amy Walsh has been shot 3 times today. She is still fighting. One of our pilots is flying with a broken arm. Sergeant Cole took shrapnel to the leg an hour ago. He has not stopped moving since. She looked at Valith with something like pride. This is what humans do. We break, but we do not fall. We bleed, but we do not stop. As long as there is breath in our lungs, we keep fighting. On the tactical display, Valith watched Private Nathan Brooks. He was young and inexperienced, but he was holding his position against wave after wave of enemy soldiers. His squad had been cut off, surrounded, outgunned. They should have been dead, but Nathan kept fighting. He fired his weapon until it ran dry, then picked up an enemy rifle and kept shooting. When that ran out, he used his combat knife. When the knife broke, he used his fists. The HFY kept coming, and Nathan kept knocking them down. Why will they not die? A HFY commander screamed over the enemy communications. We have killed them 100 times, and they keep getting back up. Because humans do not die easily, Valith thought. Because they fight for something greater than themselves. In space, the battle was turning. The human fleet had lost 4 ships now, but they had destroyed nearly 30 HFY vessels. More importantly, they had punched a hole in the enemy formation, exposing the command ship. Boarding parties, launch, Commander Carter ordered. Take that ship. Valith watched as human soldiers fired themselves across the void in small assault pods. They crashed into the hull of the HFY command vessel and began cutting their way inside. It was insane. It was suicidal. It was working. The Allied fleet, which had been holding back, finally began to move. Inspired by the human assault, they pushed forward, adding their firepower to the attack. The HFY formation began to waver. On the surface, Marcus Cole rallied his forces for a final push. "We break them here," he shouted. "We break them now. For Valora Prime. For humanity. For everyone who cannot fight for themselves." The humans charged forward, screaming their battle cries, firing their weapons, refusing to accept defeat. And the HFY, for the first time in 300 years, began to fall back. Valeth watched it all, her recording equipment capturing every moment. She had come here to observe. She had expected to witness a massacre. Instead, she was witnessing a miracle, and she was only beginning to understand what humans truly were. High Commander Zithrix stood on the bridge of his command vessel and watched his empire crumble. The tactical displays showed impossible things. His fleet, the greatest armada the Dominion had ever assembled, was being torn apart by a handful of primitive ships. His ground forces, veterans of 100 conquests, were being pushed back by soft-skinned creatures that should have died hours ago. And now those same creatures were inside his ship. He could hear them in the corridors. Their weapons, their voices, their strange, terrifying laughter. The HFY soldiers he sent to stop them did not return. The security teams he deployed went silent one by one. The humans were coming, and nothing could stop them. "How many of them are there?" Zithrix demanded. 32, High Commander, his tactical officer reported. "They breached through Deck 7 and have been advancing ever since. We have lost contact with 64 security personnel. 32 humans have killed 64 of my soldiers." "No, High Commander. 32 humans have killed 117 of your soldiers. 64 more are simply missing." Zithrix felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Real, genuine fear. Commander Daniel Carter moved through the enemy ship like a ghost of death. His team had started with 32 soldiers. They were down to 24 now, but they had not slowed down. They could not slow down. The mission was clear. Capture the enemy commander. End the battle. Save Valora Prime. The corridors were dark and filled with smoke. Enemy soldiers waited around every corner. Carter's people cut through them without hesitation. "Contact front!" Someone shouted. Weapons fire lit up the darkness. A human soldier fell, clutching her side. Another soldier grabbed her and kept moving. No one was left behind. Ever. They reached a reinforced door marked with HFY symbols. Behind it lay the command bridge. Breaching charges. Carter ordered. The door exploded inward. On the surface of Valora Prime, Marcus Cole led his soldiers through the burning ruins of the capital city. They had been fighting for 6 hours straight. They were exhausted, wounded, running low on ammunition. But the civilians were almost safe. The evacuation ships were nearly full. Just a little longer. Just a little more. The HFY had surrounded them. Hundreds of enemy soldiers closed in from all sides, their weapons ready. Marcus looked at his remaining troops. 43 men and women, most of them injured. Against them stood 300 enemy soldiers. The math was bad. The math was always bad. "Sergeant," said Nathan Brooks, his voice steady despite his youth. "What do we do?" Marcus smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made peace with death and decided to spit in its face anyway. "We do what humans always do, Private. We attack." They charged. The HFY expected them to surrender. They expected them to break. They did not expect 43 wounded soldiers to run screaming into their formation, fighting with weapons and fists and teeth if necessary. They did not expect the savagery, the desperation, the absolute refusal to die quietly. Nathan found himself alone, separated from his squad. Enemy soldiers surrounded him. He had lost his rifle somewhere in the chaos. His pistol was empty. All he had left was his knife. He thought about running. He thought about hiding Dot, then he thought about the photograph in his pocket. Amy Walsh had given it to him before the battle. It showed her family, her husband, her 2 young daughters. She had told him to fight for the ones who could not fight for themselves. Nathan raised his knife. "Come on then," he said. "Let us see what you have got." On the command ship, Carter and his team burst onto the bridge. HFY officers scattered in panic. I Commander Zithrix stood at the center, tall and terrible, his black eyes burning with hatred. "You cannot win," Zithrix said. "Even if you kill me, my fleet will destroy you all." "Your fleet is losing," Carter replied. "Your ground forces are retreating. Your empire is watching you fail. And we are just getting started." Zithrix drew his weapon, a curved blade that had killed 100 enemies. He was taller than Carter, stronger. His species had been bred for war. But Carter did not hesitate. They met in the center of the bridge, blade against blade. Zithrix was faster, his weapon a blur of metal. But Carter was something the HFY had never encountered before. He was human. Every time Zithrix struck, Carter moved just enough to avoid the blow. Every time Zithrix created an opening, Carter exploited it. The human was bleeding from a dozen cuts, but he did not stop. He did not slow down. His eyes held no fear, only cold determination. "Why will you not die?" Zithrix screamed. "Because my people are counting on me," Carter answered. He ducked under a wild swing and drove his blade into Zithrix's leg. The HFY commander fell to his knees. Carter kicked the weapon from his hand and pressed his own blade to the alien's throat. "Surrender," Carter said. "Kill me. My fleet will avenge my death. Your fleet is running." Carter nodded toward the tactical displays. It was true. The HFY ships were breaking formation, jumping the hyperspace, fleeing the battle. "Your soldiers are surrendering. Your invasion is over. You have lost." Zithrix stared at the displays in disbelief. 300 years of conquest ended by a handful of primitive creatures. "What are you?" he whispered. Carter lowered his weapon. He could have killed the HFY commander. He had every right to. But he did not. "We are human," he said, "and we do not kill those who cannot fight back." On the planet below, the HFY forces received word of their commander's capture. Their advance stopped. Their soldiers lowered their weapons. The battle was over. Marcus Cole stood among the ruins, breathing hard, surrounded by his surviving soldiers. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. Nathan Brooks sat on a pile of rubble, his knife still in his hand. He was covered in blood, most of it not his own. Corporal Amy Walsh found him there and sat down beside him. "You did good, kid," she said. "I was scared," he admitted. "I know." She put her arm around his shoulders. "We all were. But you did not let it stop you. That is what makes you one of us." The evacuation ships lifted off behind them, carrying 14 million civilians to safety. The sky was full of fire and smoke, but through the clouds, Nathan could see the stars. "We saved them," he said. "We actually saved them." Amy nodded and squeezed his shoulder. "That is what humans do, Nathan. We save people, even when it seems impossible, even when the whole galaxy thinks we cannot. We find a way." In orbit, the human fleet gathered its wounded and counted its dead. 4 ships lost. 812 humans gone forever. But Valora Prime was safe. The HFY were defeated. And the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. Valith Orn watched it all, her mind racing, her heart full of emotions she could not name. She was finally beginning to understand. The battle was over, but Valith Orn's education had just begun. She walked through the medical bay of the USS Resolute, her recording equipment capturing everything. The room was filled with wounded soldiers, humans and HFY alike. And that was what shocked her most. The humans were treating their enemies. Corporal Amy Walsh moved between the beds, her own injuries wrapped in bloody bandages. She stopped at a HFY soldier who had lost his arm in the fighting. The alien looked up at her with hatred in his eyes. "Why are you helping me?" he demanded. "We are enemies." Amy cleaned his wound and began applying medical gel. "You were enemies," she said. "Now you are just wounded. And wounded people need help. I would not help you. I would let you die." Amy looked at him, and there was no anger in her eyes. Only sadness. "I know," she said. "That is the difference between us." Valith followed her through the medical bay, watching her treat human and HFY with equal care. The same hands that had killed enemy soldiers hours ago now worked to save enemy lives. It made no sense. It made no sense at all. "Why do you do this?" Valith asked. Amy finished bandaging a human soldier and moved to the next bed. A HFY with a chest wound. "Because they are not soldiers anymore," she said. "They are not threats anymore. They are just people. Scared, hurt people who need help. And helping people is what I do. But they killed your friends. They would have killed everyone on that planet." "Yes." Amy's voice was soft but firm. "And I will remember that. I will carry that pain for the rest of my life. But I will not let it make me cruel. The moment we stop treating our enemies as people, we become monsters. And I refuse to be a monster." Valith recorded her words carefully. She still did not fully understand, but she was getting closer. On the command bridge, she found Commander Daniel Carter speaking with High Commander Zethrix. The HFY was in restraints, but Carter treated him with courtesy, almost respect. "You could have killed me," Zethrix said. "You had every right. I have destroyed entire worlds. I have killed millions." "I know," Carter replied. "Then why spare me? Why show mercy to someone who would never show mercy to you?" Carter was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired but gentle. "Because killing you would not bring back the people you have killed. It would not heal the wounds you have caused. It would just add one more death to a universe already full of them." He looked at the HFY with something that might have been pity. "You will face justice. You will answer for your crimes. But you will answer to a court, not to a blade. Because that is how we do things. That is who we are." "You are fools," Zethrix said. "Maybe," Carter smiled slightly. "But we are also alive. And your fleet is gone. And your invasion has failed. So perhaps our foolishness is worth something after all." Valith left the bridge and made her way to the observation deck. Through the windows, she could see the Allied fleet gathering around the human ships. Representatives from a dozen species had come to offer their thanks, their respect, their disbelief. Scholar Talon found her there. He was an elderly Solari, his scales faded with age, his eyes bright with curiosity. He had spent his life studying alien species, and he had come to witness the battle himself. "What do you think of them?" he asked, nodding toward the human ship. Valith was silent for a long time. "I think I finally understand," she said. "I think I know why the cosmos dreads them. Tell me." She turned to face him, her thoughts finally clear. "It is not because they are savage. Many species are savage. It is not because they are fearless. They are not fearless. They feel fear like anyone else." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "The cosmos dreads them because they choose. They choose to be gentle when they could be cruel. They choose to be merciful when they could be vengeful. They choose to protect strangers when they could walk away. And they choose to fight against impossible odds when any reasonable being would surrender." Talon nodded slowly. "They are unpredictable. They are more than that." Valith looked back at the human ship. "They are everything at once. Warriors and healers. Killers and saviors. They can destroy entire fleets in the morning and tend to enemy wounded in the afternoon. They can hate their enemies and still show them mercy. They can be terrified and still charge into battle. That does not sound like something to dread, Talon said. That sounds like something to admire. That is exactly why it is terrifying. Valeth felt a chill run through her body, because you never know which version you are going to face. If they were just savage, you could understand them. If they were just merciful, you could exploit them. But they are both. They are everything. And that makes them impossible to predict, impossible to defeat, impossible to break. She thought about Nathan Brooks, the young soldier who had been so afraid but had fought anyway. She thought about Amy Walsh, who killed to protect and healed without judgment. She thought about Daniel Carter, who had shown mercy to a monster because it was the right thing to do. The HFY thought humans were primitive, she said. They thought they were weak. They thought they would break. But humans do not break. They bend and bleed and suffer, but they never break. And when they have nothing left, when everything seems lost, that is when they become truly dangerous. The human fleet began to move, preparing to depart. Their mission was complete. Valora Prime was safe. But their legend had just begun. Valeth began composing her final report to the Solari Council. She wrote about what she had seen. The bravery. The sacrifice. The impossible victory. She wrote about the way humans fought and the way they healed. She wrote about their songs and their photographs and their strange, beautiful refusal to give up Dot, and at the end, she wrote the truth. The humans call themselves many things. Warriors, explorers, seekers of peace. But I have seen what they truly are. They are the universe's paradox. The impossible species. The ones who should not exist but do anyway. They are savage and kind, terrifying and gentle, broken and unbreakable. And that is why the cosmos dreads them. Not because of what they are, but because of what they choose to be. She looked out the window one last time and watched the human ships jump to hyperspace. 12 ships had arrived. 8 ships were leaving. 400 human soldiers would never see their homes again, but 14 million civilians were alive because of them. An entire world had been saved, and the HFY Dominion had learned a lesson. They would never forget. Do not anger the humans. Do not threaten what they love. Do not underestimate their will, because they will surprise you. They will defy every calculation. They will break every prediction. And when the dust settles, they will be the ones standing among the ruins, reaching out their hands to help their enemies rise. That is what makes them human. That is why the cosmos dreads them. And that is why, perhaps, the cosmos also needs them.